I started on apologetics 17 years ago when my son was about 10. He was in primary 4. Here is a photo of my family. My wife Florence, my son Ronnie, and my daughter Tanya. So now he's turning 27 this year, but 10 years ago, 17 years ago, he was in primary 4. And I anticipated back then that he would have many questions when he reached secondary school. And for me as a parent, I wanted to engage with him, to journey with him. So that's how I ended up taking an interest in apologetics, to find answers to questions in life. I did not know where the journey will lead to, as you consider the evidence and the facts. Where will it point to? Will the evidence point towards God? Will it point against God? Either way, it was possible, right, at the start of the journey. So I started it with an open mind to consider the facts and the evidence. I knew it would be unrealistic to expect the evidence to produce 100% certainty. Why? Because we're considering so much evidence, some of the past, some on archaeology, some on fossils, and these are all over a long period of time. So we may not have some evidence with certainty, with clarity. So I figured out that anything above 60 to 70%, right, would be pretty conclusive, assuming that we don't have the data, we don't have clear data for the remaining 30 or 40%. So I'm not trying to hit 100%. Okay, can someone help me with downstairs? Yeah. Okay, I'm not trying to hit a 100%, all right? I'm just saying that, look, if you consider all the evidence and the facts, okay, if you hit 70%, 60%, I think it's really very good because it's the majority and it points towards a certain conclusion, all right? And also, welcome to those who are joining us online. Welcome to friends from RCKL in Malaysia, and welcome to other friends from the rest of Singapore, okay. Okay, the word apologetics, it comes from the Greek word apologia, which means to give a reply to questions. So in Christian apologetics, we seek to provide answers to questions pertaining to faith. The approach is intellectual, logical, and systematic. Okay, so we will be using more of the left brain. The approach will be multidisciplinary, drawing on science, mathematics, probabilities and so forth, philosophy, theology, history, geography, archaeology, and so forth. Okay, so we will cover a wide range of fields. And most people are not used to thinking deeply and also are not experts in all the above fields. So as such, I will take a layman's approach and keep things simple. Okay, but I also know that in our midst we have some of our younger folks who are maybe more trained in science and so forth. So just let me know. You want me to go deeper, simpler. Okay, just give me the feedback, and we will calibrate accordingly to the needs. Okay. Most important, as we go through this, we will be using two things. Number one, basic critical thinking, and number two, common sense. Okay, we don't need to come with a degree in science or anything, right? Just basic critical thinking and common sense, all right? And I do not claim to be an expert. I'm still learning. I do not claim to have all the answers because nobody has. I hope to engage with you in conversation and to use simple exercises so that we can deal with questions intuitively. There will be opportunities to ask questions. Those who are joining online, you can also send in your questions. Through these 7 sessions, our goal is for everyone to think about the important questions of life and to consider the evidence and the arguments. Okay, this is the best investment you can ever make, right? Over 7 Saturdays. And it will be a fulfilling process of learning and discovery, regardless of what your conclusions are at the end. Now, if you refer to the brochure, I'll be covering 15 major segments over 7 sessions, as Lily has mentioned. You can join any of the individual sessions, but I strongly encourage you to join all the sessions if possible because they build one upon the other. Of course, each session also can be standalone, okay? But because we will be aggregating the conclusions, right? Every session you will say, hey, Where does this point to? Where does this point to? And at the end of all the 15 sessions, you make a conclusion. Where does it point to? If you think that 70% it points in a certain direction, I think you can form a conclusion. Okay. And the list of topics here, they are based on the top apologetics topics being discussed in the world today, right? If you go on YouTube, you listen to the top thinkers, top apologists. These are all the major arguments in the world. So we have curated them, and we have organized them in a way that there is a flow. We string them together so that there's a logical flow as we deal on the foundation and we move on to the next questions and the next questions and so forth. Okay. The first two sessions will be behavior on science as I lay the foundation. So please bear with me. But from the third session onwards, it will get more intuitive. Okay. So let me begin with the first segment. Okay. What are the big questions of life? Okay, there are many questions that we ask, but I will share the 4 biggest questions that matters most to us. What are these 4 questions? Number 1, does God exist? Number 2, how did we get here? Okay, how did the universe get here? How did the world get here? How did we living beings get here? How did humans get here? Okay, so these are very important questions. Number 3, what is my purpose in life? What do I live for? Number 4, where do I go when I die? Okay, is there life after death? So these are all very important questions. The answer to the first question will determine the direction of the next 3 questions. Why are the 4 questions so important? The first question is, does God exist? Now, this is an important question. God either exists or He doesn't. I will be contrasting the Christian view with the atheistic view because the Bible makes many comprehensive claims which can be tested. It is not within the scope of this series to consider the claims of other faiths, but if you want to discuss with me, we can do it after the session. For Christians, there are deep implications if God exists. Here are some implications commonly discussed in the field of apologetics. First, it means that, God created us. How we got here. Okay, if God exists, it means He is our creator. Versus the atheistic view that we came here purely by naturalistic means, a product of time and chance and matter. Okay, broadly we call it evolution, right? But there are many kinds of evolution. Okay. Number 2, as Christians, then we say that if God created us, we are made in the image of God. Okay, if God does not exist, then we are just another evolved species. Okay, and with all the other species, and in particular the apes as our close cousins, the bonobo ape, where we say 98% of their DNA is similar to that of the humans. Okay. Number 3, then God gives us purpose in life if He created us. If God does not exist, then technically we have no specific purpose in life except for survival, procreation, much like the animal kingdom. Number 4, we have an absolute standard of morality because God gives us His laws, which is our standard of morality. Versus if God does not exist, then there is no objective basis or absolute standards of morality. We just follow standards set by our society. Number 5, if God exists, He created us, we live our lives accountable to Him. Versus if God does not exist, then there is no accountability to someone above us. So we live for ourselves, basically. And next, we can spend eternity with God in heaven if He created us to, be in relationship with Him. Versus without God, then we merely return to the dust when we die and nothing else exists. So these are all important implications to the question of whether God exists. As such, we will explore these questions over 7 weeks. Now, the second big question is, how did we get here? How did we get here? How did the universe and the earth which we live in come about? Surely we must be very curious about that. How did all living things, how did you and I came about into existence to be here today? There are only two possible explanations. Number one, a naturalistic explanation, i.e. evolution, versus we were created by God as our creator. Okay, so this inquisition is where we draw a lot on science, mathematics, probabilities, archaeology, as we consider fossil records and so forth. Now, most people have never spent time evaluating the evidence, but we should because it is important. So I will be covering this today in segment 2. The third big question is, what is my purpose in life? Every youth or young adult, young people, right? We call them next gen, okay? We ask this question, what is my purpose in life? Because you are young and you have your future ahead of you, you have your life ahead of you, and you have many options. So what is my purpose in life? Now, if we do not have God, we will not have a higher eternal purpose in life because there's no eternity, right? We will likely follow the crowd and follow the norms of society. We study hard, we get good grades, we get a good job, we earn good money, we get married, have children, earn more money, grow old, and then we die. For most people, the main preoccupation is the pursuit of wealth. And but because life is short, 90 years, if we hit 90 years, it will be considered very good. But there is a termination date. And the moment we breathe our last without God, everything that you have accumulated on this earth, it will be gone. You can't bring it with you to the dust. For the rich, there is a high chance of family conflict as the families fight over their assets. We can see that happening quite often. So money can also be a curse and a source of problems, even as we pursue money, okay? Now, in addition, without God, everything that gave you meaning in life, all your memories, all your experiences, it will all disappear in an instant. It's like switching off the TV, right? It's all gone. And without God, you will never see your loved ones again, right? Loved ones who are important to you. The moment you breathe your last, it's bye-bye. That's it, okay? And after 3 generations, nobody will remember you, not even the memory of you. Why? Because we probably don't even know the names of our grandparents or our great-grandparents. So 3-4 generations later, nobody will remember us. Life without God can be meaningless and depressing because everything ends there. And apart from money, many people also set their purpose on temporal things like career and their children. And the crisis comes when a person gets retrenched or retires. Why? Because overnight, the person loses his sense of purpose that the job gave him. Or the parent who becomes an empty nester. The children get married, move out, and suddenly there is a vacuum. So the higher purpose in life must go beyond temporal things. It must have eternity within its scope. We also hear many stories of people who reach the height of their careers only to quit because they feel empty and unfulfilled in life. So therefore, the search for purpose is in everyone's hearts. So ideally, we need a higher purpose in life that lasts for eternity. Finally, if we believe God created us and gave us a higher purpose, we will live our lives for Him, and there is accountability. But if we believe that we came through natural means, then we will live our lives for ourselves. There is, no accountability. Okay, we move on to the fourth question. Where do I go when I die? Death is the only certain event in life. Do we disappear back to the dust? Or is there a heaven and a hell? If there is, where will we be? Atheists claim that man will return to dust. However, whenever someone we know dies, people use the expression R.I.P., right? We always see that on Facebook, right? Someone dies, okay, R.I.P., 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 It means rest in peace. They seem to believe and desire for a resting place of peace beyond this life. That's why they say R.I.P. If someone truly returns to the dust when he dies, then there is no need to say R.I.P. because everything terminates there. We probably just say, oh, thank you, I have memories of you, that's all. So this expression R.I.P. actually means that somewhere deep in the conscience of man, he seems to know that there is an eternity where there is a state of eternal peace or non-peace. I submit to you that somewhere deep in the conscience of man, we seem to know that there is a judgment and accountability, session at the end of this life. How many of us have been to Haupau Villa? Haupau Villa? Yeah, half. The best known attraction in Haupau Villa is the 10 Courts of Hell, which features gruesome depictions of hell in Chinese mythology. In the first court, each person is judged according to his past deeds in life. In the second court, if you have hurt anybody physically, you can be thrown into a volcanic pit. In the third court, if you have ungratefulness, your heart can be cut out. In the sixth court, if you have cheated anyone, you will be thrown into a tree of knives. In the seventh court, if you have spread rumors, your tongue will be pulled out. Okay, at least we get to know how long our tongues really are. In the eighth court, if you have caused trouble for your parents, your intestines and organs will be pulled out. The punishments are gruesome and frightening. But this Chinese mythology shows that the Chinese people somehow know deep within their conscience that there is a judgment day. And the Bible does tell us that there is a judgment day where we have to give an account for our lives. It also tells us that there is a heaven and hell, and it instructs us on how we can spend eternity with God in heaven or, without God. Since the issue of heaven and hell is deeply imprinted in the conscience of man, we should talk about it, we should address it. And next, if there is a God, and if we can spend eternity with Him, it also means that we have hope that we can spend eternity with our loved ones if we are all with God. Everything that we have lived for is not lost. Life is no longer meaningless because there is a purpose that continues beyond this physical life, be it 80, 90 years. So here's a summary of the 4 big questions in life that we will wrestle with over the next 7 weeks. Does God exist? How did we get here? What is my purpose in life? And where do I go when I die? Okay, so we will seek answers to these 4 questions over the 7 weeks, over 15 segments within these 7 weeks. So, I've kind of mapped the 15 segments over 7 weeks on the right, and in color, I've kind of mapped it to the 4 questions. So generally, you see that we will answer these 4 questions across 7 weeks and over 15 segments. So first, in segment 1, we will lay down the big questions of life, which we have done. In segment 2, we explore how the universe and the earth came about. That's the first, most basic question. And then segment 3 to 6, we will continue on how all living things that live on this planet Earth came into existence on this earth. Then we move to segments 7 and 8, where we explore our purpose in life. It focuses on the issue of suffering and evil on this earth and why Jesus had to die for our sins on the cross. Then in 9 and 10, we discuss on the reliability of the Bible as a source of truth, that we can rely on, right? We will evaluate and we will challenge that. And then in session 11, we explore the evidence for Jesus' resurrection, as a whole of Christianity hinges on the event of the resurrection. In segments 12 and 13, we explore the proof of God's existence through a living relationship with God and through miracles that transcend science. Then in session 14, we explore the existence of heaven and life after death. And finally, in session 15, we conclude with the question of what are the implications of a life with or without God. So 7 weeks, 15 segments. We will jump into segment 2 right now, which is where I will spend most of today on. So segment 2, the big question, did God create the universe or did it come through the Big Bang? What do you think? I'm sure we would all have either have a position. Some may say, well, God created. Some say, well, we came through the Big Bang. Some say, maybe I'm not sure. But let's evaluate the evidence, and try to find out. So in this world today, there are many different creation claims. Okay, here are some. You may not be able to read it, but let me read it out for you. This is just to show you that there is a diverse range of creation claims. Okay, the Greek philosophers say that the world is eternal, based on Aristotle. There is no beginning. Okay, and this is a view up to the early 20th century. Then science, under science, initially Einstein believed that the universe was eternal until his calculations proved otherwise. Then cosmologist Georges Lemaitre made discoveries based on Einstein's general theory of relativity and concluded that the universe had a beginning. And he came up with the Big Bang theory in 1931. Okay, and this is the prevailing theory up to today. In Christianity, the universe had a beginning, and the eternal God created space, time, and matter from nothing, according to Genesis chapter 1. Okay, in Buddhism, there is no creator God to explain the origin of the universe. The model used in Buddhism has no starting place. Instead, there is a never-ending circle of birth and death. Okay, so this is from a website, okay, Buddhist website. In Taoism, it says that in the beginning, there was only chaos for 18,000 years. The giant Panku was born and lived for another 18,000 years. With the assistance of 4 creatures, a tortoise, a phoenix, a dragon, and a unicorn, the giant Panku labored daily to mold the earth. When Panku finally died after 18,000 years, his body was transformed. His left eye became the sun, and his right eye became the moon. Okay, so this is from a Taoism website. Okay, so my purpose of showing you this is to show that there is a wide range of creation claims. Okay, but my interest today is to consider the two within that red box. What science versus Christianity. Okay, so we're going to consider the claims and look at the evidence to see where it points us to. Okay, firstly, I'm going to go into the hypothesis of the Big Bang. Okay, the Big Bang theory. Now, what does the evidence tell us? Now, Einstein's theory of relativity, okay, tells us that the world is expanding. Okay, that's based on his calculations, right? Mathematical calculations. So there's mathematics behind it, okay? And observations from the powerful NASA's Hubble Space Telescope, the picture on the right top corner, it shows that the universe is still expanding. It's through observations, physical observations. Meaning that if it is still expanding, therefore it had a beginning. The universe had a beginning. Imagine if you were watching a video, and this video, you see the universe expanding. A bit like Star Wars. I don't know, the older folks among us, we watch Star Wars, right? When you start off, you see all the stars moving apart. Okay? So you see that the universe is expanding, okay? But if this video was replayed backwards, you rewind this video, the opposite effect happens, right? Instead of stars going further apart, planets going further apart, you will see them coming together because you're rewinding this video, right? And it comes together to a point where there is just a single dot, which is the beginning. Okay, so this is where the observation helps us to try to imagine things. So when you rewind, all the planets coming together, and you rewind, it becomes, the planets and the stars, it will become more and more dense until it becomes a single dense dot, okay, a single point. So in 1931, Belgian astronomer Georges Lemaitre built on Einstein's theory of relativity and, of course, observations from the Hubble Space Telescope. Okay, and based on his theory, about 13.8 billion years ago, from an infinitely hot and dense single point, it inflated and stretched to the still expanding cosmos. Okay, so this is based on, in line with the observations, right? So from a single point, it expanded, it stretched, it inflated to the current state of the still expanding cosmos. It appeared as a dot, and then it spun faster and faster, okay? And the spinning nebula meaning the giant cloud of dust and gas in space, it flattened into a huge disk. And this results in cosmic objects to spin, right? The planets and everything, right? They're all spinning. So if you look at the picture of the Milky Way at the right-hand bottom, you will see the flat and spinning effect. Do you see the spinning effect? Okay. And the theory, Big Bang theory, is based on sound observations and mathematical calculations by Einstein. So this is, you can consider, okay, based on science, okay, and evidence. However, there are some unanswered questions with the Big Bang theory. Firstly, infinitely dense matter from that single point, that dense single point, it could not have inflated. Why? Because it was so dense that gravity would have pulled it back, whatever was trying to inflate. Imagine it's so dense, all the billions of stars and planets were all in one dot. It's so dense that the gravity is so great, nothing could have inflated. I mean, you just imagine today, right? If there's a volcanic eruption and ashes go up to the air, guess what? Gravity will pull all the ashes down back to the earth. Just imagine that, okay? Secondly, the Big Bang theory does not explain the source of matter. Where did all this matter come from that form the billions of stars and planets? There's a lot of matter. I mean, imagine one world is really so big, you have billions of stars and planets. Where did it come from? What about who created space and time? All this matter has to be contained in space. Space is like a big room. Who created this room? Who created time, such that, the expansion happens across time? So all these are not answered. And what about, where did this energy that set off the Big Bang come from? There's a lot of energy. Imagine if it's still expanding today, how much energy it is to have created billions of planets and stars, and it's still expanding today. Almost infinite energy. Where did this energy come from? Have you ever wondered? What do you think? So I'm going to move on to mathematical reasoning. Okay? Based on mathematical logic, can 0 be 1? Okay? Math students here, everyone studied maths in secondary school, primary school. Can 0 be 1? If I put 0 equals to 1, what do you think? Logically, can? Cannot, right? So technically, the universe cannot exist from nothing. Because 0 can never be 1. If there was nothing to begin with, how can something be there suddenly, right? Not even in 13.8 billion years. So the Big Bang theory does not provide answers to where did all the matter come from, who created space and time for the matter to dwell in, who set the precise laws for it to work. For example, laws of gravity, the rate of expansion, and so forth. Where did all the energy that started the Big Bang come from? Okay, Francis Collins, the former director of National Institute of Health in the US, gives this quote: "Nature provides some interesting pointers to God. There is something instead of nothing." Okay? Nature provides some interesting pointers to God. It points to God because there is something instead of nothing. If there's no God, then there should be nothing. But because there's something, it points to God. Okay? Job chapter 26, verse 7 in the Bible says, "God stretches out the north over empty space. He hangs the earth on nothing." Okay, so the Bible claims that it was God who is the source of all this. Let's do an exercise now, just to keep your mind engaged. Let's try to make something from nothing. Imagine you are in this empty room, okay? First, of course, we have to, we need to explain how did this empty room come about. But I'll give it to you. I'll give you the empty room, right? It's from me, okay? We're in this empty room, but you need to make a rose out of nothing from this empty room. Can you make a rose out of nothing? No materials, nothing, okay? I don't give you any materials. From zero materials, you have to make a rose. Who can make? Anyone can make? Belinda can make. Oh, there's a Rose here. Okay. Someone called Rose here. Okay. So if Rose is in the room, you've got a Rose in the room. All right. Thank you, Rose. Okay, but logically, what do you think? Can you make a rose out of nothing? We're just using common sense here, right? Okay, if you say, no, we can't. How about I give you more time? I give you 1 year. I give you 2 years. I give you 13.8 billion years. Can? Still cannot, right? So I think this common sense conclusion tells us you cannot make something out of nothing, even with more time, even with 13.8 billion years. So therefore, all the matter that makes up the billions of stars and planets, they need a cause. It couldn't have just appeared out of nothing. Okay? So this is the conclusion. Okay? Next, let me go to the Kalam cosmological argument. Now, the Kalam cosmological argument is a powerful argument that is popularized by Dr. William Lane Craig, a leading professor of philosophy. It is based on a concept by Aristotle. The most prominent form of the argument is as follows. First, everything that begins to exist has a cause. Someone must have caused it. Right? Everything that begins to exist must have a cause. Do you agree? How do you get here? You know, you didn't just open your eyes today and you ended up sitting here, right? You made your way here, you drove here, you took a bus here, there was a cause, right? Number two, the universe began to exist. Based on Big Bang Theory, it began to exist. Number three, therefore the universe has a cause. It's just a logical, philosophical argument. Okay, hence, the universe could not have existed by itself, meaning that it was uncaused. Okay, someone must have caused it to exist. So the Bible tells us that God, who is outside the material universe, created it. Okay, that He is the cause. Now let us do an exercise. Let's do a reflection on cause and effect. Cause and effect, okay? Picture one, a nice cake. Okay, I know Belinda bakes cakes. Banana cake is good, right? Can a cake appear by itself? Can it bake itself? That means uncaused. If Belinda didn't do all the work, put it into the oven or the, what mixer do you call that? The Thermomix or whatever, okay? Marketing for you, okay? Thermomix product, okay? Can the cake just appear out of nothing? No, right? If you see a cake and you say, Belinda baked it, okay? So there is a cause. Can a baby produce itself? You just wake up one day, and suddenly there's a baby there in your house. Cannot, right? There's a cause, right? You need the sperm plus the egg plus 9 months, then the baby comes out, okay? Can your school assignment complete by itself? I think the students will love this. Students, okay, you love this. Wake up one day and everything is done, uncaused. You wish, right? You got to study hard, do your homework, and complete it, right? So all the conclusion is there, right? Can a house built by itself? That means you just, wake up one day and, wow, this beautiful house on your land, you didn't have to build it over 2 years. Cannot, right? Everything has its cause. So the question is, can a complex and orderly universe create itself? I think you know the answer. I think the common sense conclusion tells us that the complex and orderly universe with billions of stars and planets couldn't have just appeared by itself. And this is based on the Kalam cosmological argument of cause. Okay, so far so good. All common sense, right? No need to be so chim and whatever, just common sense. Next, let's talk about the law of conservation of angular momentum. This one is very interesting. Law of conservation of angular momentum. Now in physics, a momentum is a quantity describing the ability of an object to continue its linear motion, right? If somebody push you by momentum, you continue moving, okay? If there's no friction to stop you, okay? Or a ball, you roll a ball, there's no friction, it continues moving, okay? And angular momentum is the ability of an object to continue its circular motion. Now, due to the undirected force of the Big Bang, remember the Big Bang Theory? There was a force, don't know where it came from, but boom, everything expanded and then it started spinning, right? So, the planets and the moons that were created out from this nebula, right, this cloud of dust, of course, how did planets and stars came out from this dust? Okay, you need explanation for that as well, right? But assuming they just popped out, all right? And they're all spinning because it was spinning in a certain direction, right? This Big Bang, thing, it was spinning. And so everything that comes out spins in the same direction, right? Agree or not? Everything coming out from something that spins in a, counterclockwise direction. If a few balls come out from this cloud, right, it will all spin in a counterclockwise direction, following that force, right? Agree? Agree or not? Okay. Now, when viewed from the North Pole, the Earth rotates counterclockwise. Okay. Likewise, we may expect all the other planets and the moons that are spinning to spin in the same direction, i.e. counterclockwise. Agree or not? Agree, right? Because it is undirected. Nobody come and mess around with it, right, in the natural. So you should all spin the same direction. So my question to you right now is this. Do you think that all the planets and all the moons spin in the same direction? Who say yes? Logically, it should be yes. How come nobody is putting up your hand? Come on. Logically, it's yes, right? Because the force is undirected, right? If Big Bang was in counterclockwise, then everything will be moving, spinning counterclockwise, right? Okay, come on. Let's be scientific. Come on. Let's go on logic, okay? Should it be counterclockwise? Everything. Come on. Yes, okay. You're scientific, you're logical. Okay, the rest all illogical. No, okay. Okay, let me tell you the answer. Well, Venus, Uranus, and possibly Pluto rotate backwards from other planets. 6 of the 63 moons in the solar system rotate backwards. Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune have moons orbiting in both directions. Both directions. That is mind-blowing, I mean, if it's an undirected force, why do you have, going in both different directions? So the Big Bang theory, based on an undirected process, has no good explanations for these exceptions. It cannot explain. The evidence points to someone messing around, directing things. Who is powerful enough to rotate planets and moons the opposite way? You can try and, Superman, right? You watch Superman, the older ones. He turned the earth the other way, right, to save Louis Lane or something, right? Oh man, who is strong enough? There's no Superman here, right? So I guess God is the only candidate, all right? God makes himself known through his creation, according to Romans chapter 8, verse 20. Let us do an exercise next to illustrate this point. Okay, imagine you have a top spinning toy like the one on the right hand above. Okay, I bought one of these for my son when he was young. I don't know, they don't play this nowadays. They play computer games, handphone games, more exciting. But in those days, you pull this thing, imagine you pull this, it will turn in a counterclockwise, correct? You pull that strip, it will turn in counterclockwise. Imagine this little girl spins 10 tops, okay, and they all go counterclockwise because she's using this toy, this machine, right? What is the likelihood that one of the tops spin the opposite way, i.e. clockwise? If you see one spinning the opposite way, what would your conclusion be? Assuming he has a naughty brother, she has a naughty brother in the room. You would assume that the brother came, took one of it and turned it the other way, right? Someone messed with it, right? Someone intervened, okay? So, I think that would be a very natural, logical conclusion. Someone intervened. Okay? And probably if the brother is around, it will be the brother. So likewise, if you look at the universe and the way the planets spin, I think the conclusion is someone intervened. Okay? Okay, let's move on to the next argument now. Now, if the Big Bang is uncontrolled, okay, what would you expect to be the outcome of this powerful, infinitely hot explosion like the Big Bang? The theory tells us that the Big Bang happened from an infinitely hot and dense single point. And then the universe inflated and stretched, first at unimaginable speeds. That means it's so powerful, the force, that it was inflating at unimaginable speeds. And then after that, at a more measurable rate. What would you expect? I mean, look at the picture here, right? First is a picture of a burned city. Another one is a picture of aftermath of a hurricane, a strong force. Okay, maybe we would expect to see weird, contorted shapes. Maybe we will see, weird, contorted planets. Maybe all burned like charcoal. Maybe the debris of contorted planets floating randomly in space will look like the aftermath of a tsunami, correct? It should be like that, right? How many of you remember images of the tsunami that happened, okay, off the coast of Aceh? Okay, it was a big mess, okay? So if this Big Bang was undirected, it was so powerful, it was so hot, you would imagine everything should be chao ta, Would you agree? Agree, right? Yeah. But instead, what do we see today? Everything seems to be controlled, orderly, beautiful. 奇怪嘞. Why like that? It doesn't look anything like, an uncontrolled, powerful force at the high temperatures, Everything looks so nicely put in place, nicely organized, and beautiful aesthetically, okay? Psalm 19 verse 1 says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. It seems to point to the handiwork of God, to declare his glory. Okay, next, let us evaluate the claims of the Bible and see how does it measure up with the Big Bang Theory. The Bible tells us that there is a beginning of the universe. That God, who is eternal, wise, and powerful, he created space, time, and matter. Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 says, in the beginning, which is time, God created the heavens, which is space, and the earth, which is matter. So time, space, and matter covered in Genesis 1 verse 1. And God created it with his infinite wisdom and understanding. That means it was not random. It was through wisdom and understanding. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 19 says, the Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. So a lot of thought went into it. That explains for the complexity, the beauty of things, all right? The sophistication of things. And he created it through the power of his spoken word. Psalm 33 verses 6 and 9, it says, by the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and all the hosts of them by the breath of his mouth. For he spoke and it was done. So the force was controlled by God through his word in a creative way, a creative force. So I will argue that the Bible provides an explanation consistent with the Big Bang Theory and maybe even better than the Big Bang Theory. Here's why. Now, the Big Bang Theory, which is based on Einstein's calculation and the Hubble observations, do not support the position that the universe have always existed with no beginning. Okay? It asserts that there is a beginning, right? So any view that has no beginning is not based on observations and mathematics. Okay? But the Big Bang Theory is consistent with the biblical Genesis account that the universe had a beginning. So what I'm trying to say is that Genesis account is consistent with science and observations and mathematics. However, the Bible account provides explanations that overcomes the key problems of the Big Bang Theory. For example, the Bible tells us where matter, space, and time came from. It tells us that the universe expanded by the power of God's word, not an infinitely dense matter which cannot inflate. And the opposite rotation of planets and moons also point to the directed process of Creator God instead of the undirected process of the Big Bang. Fred Hoyle, the famous astrophysicist from Cambridge, says, the Big Bang theory requires a recent origin of the universe that openly invites the concept of creation. So he is saying that creation is God's real Big Bang.